The following information on your guided notes as you watch this video is information you should have learned in 6th grade. If not, we can take care of it during this unit. Let's get started. Okay, remembering PEMDAS. So on your notes, we need to fill out what PEMDAS actually stands for. So we've got P for parentheses because parentheses goes first. Then we have E for exponent, M for multiplication, or just multiply, D for divide, A is addition, and S is for subtract. Good job. So, to get some practice, you have this huge expression over here where you get to do about every single step. Okay, so the first step that we have to take care of is inside the parentheses. Well, if you look inside the parentheses, you have an exponent and you have division. So within the parentheses, that exponent goes first. Okay, so we need to take care of that 4 squared. So 4 squared is actually 4 times 4. 4 times 4 is 16. Now, the key to showing how to model by simplifying this expression correctly using order of operations is to show each step accordingly, because that's how you would show it on the K-Prep. Okay, that's what the grader is looking for. Do you know how to solve order of operations correctly? This is the easiest way to show it. So we took care of the 4 squared first, okay? And notice how I rewrote the entire expression just doing that one step. So now step 2 is actually going to take care of that parentheses, which is 16 divided by 2, which is 8. So I'm going to put 8 in that place and then rewrite everything else. Okay, so that takes care of step 2. Step 3 is to then multiply the 3 times the 7. Okay, so this was the 16 divided by 2 to get you 8. Next we do 3 times 7, which is 21. So we're going to rewrite the expression, but instead we're going to put 21 at the end. Now when it comes to addition and subtraction, you want to do the order of left to right, whichever comes first. Okay, so just because addition comes first in the acronym of PEMDAS, that doesn't mean we take care of it first. We actually have to do the subtraction of 8 minus 5 first, which gives you 3. And then step 5 is just the answer, which is 24. Okay, this next review is something that students either forgot or don't know how to do it, so we have to review it. It's going to be kind of difficult. So right now we're going to get used to our vocabulary. So if you look in the first box near the 8x, okay, that 8, just the 8, because it's with a variable, we call that the coefficient. Coefficient. Okay, so any number in front of a variable is going to be called that word. Next, you have the arrow that is pointing to the x. Well, everybody knows that the variable, or I'm sorry, the letter is a variable. So put that right there up in your box. The other box over to the right is pointing to this lonely number, okay, that has no letter. Okay, so we call that a constant. Now, if you make a side note over here, it says constants always come at the end of the expression. So, ladies and gentlemen, you have to be familiar with writing expressions the correct way, especially for high school purpose. Okay, not only 8th grade, but in high school most definitely. So let's look at each. We have in green, I have underlined, okay, or boxed in each term. Okay, there are 5 terms being separated by the operation of either addition or subtraction. That's the easiest way to spot how many terms you're dealing with, because ladies and gentlemen, when you go into solving 1-step and 2-step equations, you're going to be using these vocabulary words, and you have to notice how many terms are in each equation if you are going to solve it. So let's figure out the list of terms. We have 8x, that's one term. 6x is your other term. 4y is another term. Now, here is where it gets confusing. You have negative 2y as your 4th term, and you have negative 15, which is a constant, but that is your 5th term. So we have a total of 5 terms. Now let's take care of these sentences over here to the right. Coefficients always come before the variables. So it's 3x, not x3. That's very important. The sign in front of the term lets you know if it is positive or negative. So the sign in front of the term, that means that one and this one are negative because of how it appeared in the expression up above. Lastly, an algebraic expression should have the variable listed in alphabetical order. Okay? That means if you're dealing with more than one letter, you should write them in order alphabetically. Okay? Now, when it says order with descending powers, this is what it means if you look below. If you see z plus 3, z squared plus z fourth plus 5, okay, 5 is your constant, so that's going to be at the end. But you have to put these, since they're all the same letter, you have to put the bigger power first. So that's why it's z to the 4th plus 3z to the 2nd plus just your single z, and then of course the constant at the end. We will get some practice with that. Oh, by the way, go back up to the last box. This is called an algebraic, that's a G, algebraic expression, because algebra deals with letters. So whenever you see expressions or equations that deal with letters, you know you're dealing with algebra. Okay, all you have to do for this section of our notes is note how many variables, coefficients, constants, and of course number of terms there are in each expression. Okay, so let's do the first one together. I notice that I have an x and I have a y. Okay, so even though you see x twice, you see 2 of them, you only have to write down that there's only one x. So x is a variable and y is a variable. Now, coefficients. So look for those numbers in front of the variables. We have a 3 and we have a 4. Now, this is very, very particular. We have a -1 because if there's no number in front of a variable, there's always 1. So this happens to be negative. Constants, we have a +12. So therefore, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 terms. So you just have to put the number 4 there. You don't have to list them out. All right, go ahead and pause your video. Try to do B, C, and D all by yourself. Push play to resume for the answers. Okay, go ahead and pause your screen, check your answers, make any corrections that you need to correct, and move on to the next slide. This section of our notes is to get used to the proper way of writing an actual expression, making sure that they're in the appropriate order. So let's do the first one together. We have 17 plus a minus a squared. So of course the constant, that has to go at the end. And then you have 2 of the same letter. So then you look at its powers, okay? And the bigger power goes first. So don't forget, this term with the power, it's a negative. So don't forget that negative. Then you have a plus A, and then put your plus 17 at the end. Okay, so this also gives you practice about recognizing those negative and positive integers. Try to do F, G, and H all by yourself by pausing your video and then pressing play to resume to get your answers. Okay, check out your answers, make any corrections that you need to make, and then move on to the next slide. Notice that in G, the single X comes before the 3Y because X comes before Y alphabetically. It doesn't matter if the Y has a 3 in front of it, just as long as it doesn't have a power of 3. Okay, this last slide, we need to make sure we have order of operations under control before we move into solving equations, okay? So let's try the first one together. I'm going to keep PEMDAS in the back of my head, okay, and recognizing that P for parentheses goes first, and I'm going to do each step at a time. So we're going to add 3 plus 9. And we're going to get 12. Okay? So bring down everything else. Next, we're going to take care of the 4 squared. So we've got 12 divided by 6 minus 2 times 8 divided by 4 squared is actually 4 times 4, which is 16. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is take care of multiplication and division, going from left to right. Well, I see division first. We're going to take care of that 12 divided by 6, which is 2. Bring down everything else. I'm going to put a dot here for the multiplication so you guys don't think that's an X like a variable. The next thing to do is the multiplication in the middle. Yes, you're going to take care of that before you do the division. So we got 2 minus 2 times 8 is 16. Bring down the division of 16. So this right here goes next. 16 divided by 16 is 1. And then lastly, you have 2 minus 1, which is 1. All right. Go to J. Do you notice how that square is on the outside of the parentheses? So you're going to take care of inside that parentheses first, all of that, and then you're going to square that answer, okay? I didn't know if you guys were going to catch that or not. So pause your screen, do the problems, press play to resume for your answers. Okay, check your answers really quickly. Make sure you correct any mistakes that you might have, please, and then move on. If you haven't already received this worksheet, please either go ask your teacher for it, or if you know where to get it, go get it and do it independently. When you're done, check your answers from the answer key.